worthy names of people who exercised faith. They're long gone now, they're dead, but they lived out the same faith as we as Christians are supposed to live out. And it's a long list of famous people, including, of course, Abraham. And then we'll move on today to people later than Abraham, like David, like Samuel. And which verse shall we start on today?
23.
23, right. I've been plowing through the Tyndale commentary. This is a good basic commentary. You can get them second hand very cheaply. The Tyndale series, New Testament commentaries on Hebrews by Donald Guthrie. This one, 23, we introduce Moïse in French. What's that in Hebrew? Moshe. That is Moshe. Moshe. Moses. And it's a rather touching story. Moses in verse 23. I'll read verse 23. I'll stay on my right here to read 24 and go around as far as 28 or so. Here's 23. By faith, Moses, when he was born, was hidden for 3 months by his parents, because he saw he was a beautiful child. But they saw he was a beautiful child, and they were not afraid of the king's edict.
By faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter.
Instead, he chose to share in the suffering of God's people rather than to enjoy the temporary pleasures of sin.
Mm-hmm.
Moses counted the reproach of the Messiah to be of immensely greater value than the wealth of Egypt, because he was focused on the reward to come.
Mm-hmm.
Trusting in God, he left Egypt and was not scared of Pharaoh's anger. He preserved with his eyes fixed on the invisible God.
Yep. Verse 28, by faith he kept the Passover and the sprinkling of the blood, so that he who destroyed the firstborn would not touch them.
By faith they passed through the Red Sea as though they were passing through dry land. And the Egyptians, when they attempted it, were drowned.
Yeah, okay, let's look at that. That's amazing. By faith Moses then, when he was born, was hidden. Why did they hide him? Because his parents were scared of Pharaoh, right? Who was going to kill all the Israelite firstborn. Remember that? It's an awful thing. They were living there in Egypt, and the threat was from the government, from Pharaoh. All the firstborn of the Israelites are going to die. So what you do is you take your little baby, put him in what we used to call at home a Moses basket. We called it the Moses. Has anybody seen the Moses? Meaning this wicker basket made out of reeds, papyrus reeds. So his mother very smartly took the baby for 3 months, hid him in the side of the river, Nile. What then happened? Well, God was involved in this story. So it so happened that Pharaoh's daughter, you read the story in Exodus, they went out by the river to bathe, actually. And guess what? She saw this wicker basket in the reeds. She said, "What's that?" She walked over, and there the baby was crying. And so eventually what she did was to get the mother to be the nurse. It was rather smart. It happened maybe through God's providence. But the Pharaoh's daughter went back, and how did that happen? The idea was, we need a nurse for this baby. Well, guess what? The mother showed up as the nurse. Isn't that clever? The mother showed up as the nurse and took care of the baby. And he was a good-looking child. I don't know what that means exactly. Why was he so striking? Very striking baby.
You have special child in your paraphrase.
Special child, right. Okay, maybe it's not quite right, but he's, I don't know what sort of speciality. Good-looking, both versions say. And hid him for 3 months. He saw he was a beautiful child. They saw he was a beautiful child. They were afraid of the king's edict, which was death for the firstborn. All of that was an act of faith. What does that mean? They were trusting in God despite the difficulties, right? God could oversee all of that. Isn't there a famous proverb which says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and he will direct and guide your paths. That's what we believe. He's not going to decide whether you have chicken for supper or venison, every detail, but he's going to oversee the basic movement of your life if you are one of his committed followers. That makes some sense. By faith then in 24, Moses, when he'd grown up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. Interesting. He did not like that tie with pagan Egypt. He refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, who found him in the basket, you see. Pharaoh's daughter is the one who, going out to bathe, happened to find the baby, who then got the mother, the real mother, to feed the baby. But he didn't want that contact. So what's the lesson for us? We are green card people. I'm a green card person. Very delighted to live in this country, but I'm not a citizen. Don't need to be. I can be here as a resident alien. So I'm a resident alien. And being married to a citizen, Barbara, from Michigan, that's very easy. I went into the office there in London way back, signed a couple of forms, green card, and it had no date on it even. It lasted forever. Well, eventually the government caught up with that and they said, no, we need to have a date on it, so I had to pay a few $100s and get a new green card. But I'm a green card person. I'm a resident alien. You cannot ask me to fight for America against Britain or anybody else. I'm not part of the system. I don't get to fight in the wars of the world. You might think about that as a Christian too. And Moses then conscientiously decided not to belong to Pharaoh because he was looking, let's see, considering the reproach of Christ. I like that. Let's go back to verse 25. Choosing rather to endure ill treatment. Are you willing to choose ill treatment necessary with the people of God rather than the passing pleasures of sin? It may be fun to have a wild old life for a time, very pleasurable maybe, but at the end of it, what do you get? Nothing. You're dead. So he made a wise choice. He concentrated on the things of faith. Just this week we received a huge advertisement. You can live until you're 106, it said. If you take this or that supplement, enough of them, you can live to the ripe old age of 106. So I will work on this next weekend. I'll be up in Ohio with Dave Hickson's church. I'll use that as an example. The Bible is talking about living forever. That's rather smarter than living until you're 106, isn't it? I mean, so what? You live to 106. Big deal. But you're dead. The Bible is a tract offering immortality, how to live forever and ever and ever. That is much more interesting to me than living till you're 106. Okay, so that's a simple point here. He was looking forward to the reward. 26 is considering the reproach of Messiah. Now, how could Messiah affect Moses? Because Messiah had not come yet. But the spirit of Messiah, you'll find in 1 Peter 1:11, the spirit of Christ was in the prophets. Christ wasn't there yet. He wasn't born. But in 1 Peter 1:11, I think, I'll ask Sarah to read that for me. What does that say? 1 Peter 1:11. 1 Peter 1:11. Got that one, Sarah?
1:10. As to this salvation,
Yes.
the prophets who prophesied of the grace that would come to you made careful searches and inquiries,
Yeah.
seeking to know what person or time the Spirit of Christ within them was
Yeah.
indicating, as it predicted the sufferings of Christ and the glories
Yeah.
to follow.
They were searching all of those things in the Old Testament time. Christ hadn't come, but the spirit of Messiah was there. That whole messianic idea was around among the prophets. So that's not a problem at all.
So does
Yep.
that go in hand with John 8:58?
Yes, of course. Before Abraham came to exist, that's John 8:58, I am the Messiah, Jesus said. When he said, I am, he didn't say, I'm God. He said, I'm he, the Messiah.
Sorry, I meant the 56.
Yeah.
He saw Messiah's day.
Exactly. He looked forward. Abraham looked forward to Messiah's day. He never said, Jesus never went around saying, I'm God. That's just crazy. That's loony bin stuff. You take people to lunatic asylums who say they're God. No, he said, I'm the Messiah. Who do you say that I am? You're the Messiah, the Son of the living God. That's the basis of our faith. Okay, so that is very clear to me then.
Our commentary suggests also Psalm 89,
Okay, what does that have?
verse 50 and 51.
Mm-hmm. Could you read that for us, please?
Yeah, it says, remember, Lord, how your servant has been mocked,
Yes.
how I bear in my heart the taunts of all the nations,
Yes.
the taunts with which your enemies, Lord, have mocked, with which they have mocked every step of your anointed one.
Yeah. Very interesting. That's a prophecy of all who suffer for Christ, particularly Messiah. Just read that one more time for me. It's refreshing.
Remember, Lord, how
Yes.
your servant has been mocked, how I bear in my heart the taunts of all the nations, the taunts with which your enemies, Lord, have mocked, with which they have mocked every step of your anointed one.
Yes.
Now, the subject in this incredible psalm that you read to the students yesterday, by the way,
Yes.
is David, is that right?
Absolutely. And
And
David
his
is a
descendant
type.
and his seed.
David and his seed. David was mocked. Everybody who suffers for Jesus will be mocked by the world. The parents of Jesus himself said, he's mad, lock him up. That's pretty amazing. I do have this question for Mary when I meet her, as I hope to at the Messianic banquet. You knew that you bore this child supernaturally. Later on you lost faith, and I think she did. She couldn't believe what was happening, and she collaborated with his brothers and sisters. He had several brothers and sisters, you know that. James, we know one brother, James, we know another brother, Jude, half-brothers, they're half-brothers. And he had sisters as well, they're not named, but he had sisters. They said, lock the guy up, he's crazy. He's out of his mind. That's what they said about Jesus. So if they said about you, that's to be expected. That's how the game works.
Well, it's similar to the situation in the Old Testament where, you know, you had columns of fire, you had,
Yes,
they saw the glory.
I know.
They literally saw things that are, yet they kept losing faith.
They kept losing
So
faith.
it tells us something about us humans, that it's not the flash and the miracles, and
No.
it's just an innate sort of like
Tends to not
idolatrous
be,
nature
right.
we have, no?
So, absolutely. The story of our world is when the Bible speaks and nobody listens. This is the story from the start. God, as the Creator says, this is the way to do it, this is what I'm doing, and nobody listens, except for a few. And those few get persecuted. That's a very tragic story. So when God then finally sends his Son, and the voice from heaven says, this is my Son, listen to him, guess what they do? They killed him. How stupid is that? It isn't smart. When God sends his uniquely begotten Son, and we don't listen. So when the Bible speaks and nobody listens.
Or when the Bible speaks and we make up an alternate reality.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or we pretend to be doing the Bible, but actually eliminate it. We take our Bibles to church and then we read it in a way that has nothing to do with the original. We turn God from 1 into 3, etc., etc.
So once again,
Yeah.
this verse 26, which I hadn't
Thought of it till that.
seen.
Mhm.
So once again,
Yeah.
not just Abraham, but Moses and the prophets saw, in a way, the Messiah.
Oh, absolutely. Very clearly, they knew about the promised Messiah, of course. And Abraham rejoiced. He looked forward to the kingdom. Abraham did. Abraham is the father of the faithful, spiritual father, that is. That's Galatians 3:29. Says that if you are a believer, true believer, then you are Abraham's seed, mean descendant. You are related to Abraham because you have the same faith as Abraham. So the denomination that I worked for 25 years founded their denomination in 1850, called the Church of God Faith of Abraham. Brilliant. That was very clever. But you're supposed to have then the faith of Abraham, the same faith that Abraham had. And you're supposed to also have the faith of Jesus, mistranslated often as faith in Jesus. Faith in Jesus is fine, as long as you understand that it's the faith also of Jesus. Because it's the faith of Abraham, same Greek expression, faith of Abraham, faith of Jesus. We're back to our old slogan, right? The words of Jesus matter. That's my Son. Listen to him. Okay, so all of that comes out of 26. Then reproach of Messiah, greater riches. He was looking to the reward. See, what I see in the commentaries here is complete absence of any definition of the reward. They don't tell you. So what we've done is to substitute a, quote, spiritual reward, namely go to heaven when you die and play a harp on a pink cloud. And it's all about inheriting the land. There we can appeal to our former and present JW friends. They do at least understand that paradise is going to be on this earth. God hasn't finished with the earth, because if he has finished with the earth, then he's failed. He intended the paradise to work, so he's going to make sure it works. It hasn't worked yet. But to take all of this and put it up in the sky is meaningless nonsense. No wonder people mock at the church. They say, well, how stupid that is. Who wants to go and play a harp on a pink cloud forever? I don't. Now, a solo harp, you're on your cloud and somebody else is on their cloud. It's not even together. Well, playing in an orchestra is fun. Community is fun. But what they promise in church is so vague that most people say, that doesn't make any sense. So it's all about the land, the land, the land, the land, the land, you tell your friends. Blessed are the meek, Jesus said, because they're going to inherit the land, the earth. The Greek word ye, as in geography, the land, geography, has to do with this beautiful earth renewed. They don't say that, you see, in the commentaries. These are the best that they can produce. A lot of good information. But they talk about the reward, they don't define it. How many words can you misdefine before everything is chaos? If I lecture to you on the USA, and you think it's the United Stamp Association, you're lost, right? I can only misdefine a certain number of words before the whole thing becomes absolutely meaningless chaos.
That great Greek word I love.
Polygenesia. Yes, okay, yes. Polygenesia is the new birth of the world. Jesus loved that. He said that there in Matthew 19:28. When the world is going to be reborn, you apostles are going to sit on 12 thrones to administer the regathered 12 tribes of Israel. I want sermons on that. I said to the students jokingly, I want you to preach that 5 times every Sunday. And they don't. So we have to insist on these basic things, like the reward is to rule the world with Messiah. That's much more practical.
Some comments here.
Yes, please. What do you got?
Michelle thanks you for that introduction. At the beginning, it was very good for our niece to hear a synopsis of what we believe.
Good. Good. Thank you, Michelle.
The prophets were lone voices in the wilderness, as milk, no sugar, no cyanide.
Mm-hmm.
Corey says Stephen culminated his story with the statement that they were always resisting the Holy Spirit.
Yes. That's interesting.
Ramon says Lamech, is that how you say it?
Mm-hmm.
Called his son Noah, Genesis 5:29.
Yeah. Yes. And Noah, of course, means rest. And Noah is the one of 8 survivors. I mean, think about this week. How many people survived the flood? 8. And God is a person to be reckoned with. Come on now. We don't see God striking everybody dead now. We don't see that. But think of the flood. Jesus said, just like in the days of the flood, they'll be marrying and giving in marriage and watching their movies and doing this and that and going shopping endlessly until suddenly the flood hit them and they didn't escape. 8 people survived the flood. That's a terrifying judgment, isn't it? So there is such a thing as the fear of God, meaning the reverence of God. A healthy fear of God is a good idea.
You remind me of the story in Acts.
Yes.
Ananias.
Yes. And Sapphira. Right?
They're struck dead, and the text says in Acts 5:5, in great fear seized all.
That's a good
who
point.
heard what had happened. They heard it. They didn't even see it.
That's right. That's a good point.
I think they were.
Man.
Yes. So the Bible should strike terror into your heart at some level. It should. It's not a book to be trifled with, because God has a judgment in mind. And I think it says in Ecclesiastes, the problem is that God isn't making judgments all the time now, right? People resist God and they're not struck dead. They go their merry way. But that's not going to be so forever, apparently. Okay, so 27 then, he left Egypt not fearing the wrath of the king. That's good. He was actually aware of what the king would do, kill the firstborn, but he didn't ultimately fear that king. He feared God. He endured as seeing him who is unseen. None of you has seen God, literally. you haven't actually seen Jesus literally, although he did show up, as we read in Paul's writings. He showed up personally and finally to Paul. That made Paul an apostle because he'd witnessed Jesus literally. But we still believe in God as unseen. 28. By faith, Moses kept the Passover. What was that? What was the Passover? It was the annual first holy day of the year in the month of Nisan, in April or so. And they kept the Passover. On the 14th of Nisan, they slew a lamb per family, and they ate it that night at the beginning of the 15th. You know, the day in Jewish thinking begins at sunset, so the beginning of the 15th, which was sunset on the what we would call the 14th, having slain it in the afternoon, they had the big family meal, and that lamb then was a picture of Jesus, who is the ultimate lamb. They were learning the lesson about Jesus in advance by going through that ritual. What else did they have to do with blood? There's a lot of blood here. They had to put the blood on the door lintels, right? The door and the lintels of the door. And if they did that, then the destroying angel that God used would pass over, hence the word Passover, right? Pass over the house. So they were learning the lesson that without blood there's no remission of sins. No contract, no covenant is renewed or even made, is never contracted without the shedding of blood. I think that is because blood is the symbol of life and death, right? Without your blood you're dead. With your blood coursing in your veins you're alive. So it's the ultimate thing, isn't it, blood? And water is also a cleanser. So blood and water are cleansing agents. I was really struck with the detail here because it seems fussy in a way, doesn't it? To have to get a paintbrush and paint blood all over your door.
With blood.
With blood.
Yeah.
And then later when Moses then got a bowl of blood and poured it all over the people and the words of the covenant. But I can see the point. I mean, isn't that a clever way of teaching people? You wouldn't forget that, would you? So that's what's referred to here. He kept the Passover on the 14th of Nisan every year, and they did, and the sprinkling of the blood. And what happened then was that the destroying angel would see the blood on your house and not kill the firstborn. Otherwise, the firstborn were slain. That's an awful event. Imagine the newspapers in Egypt that day, right? It's a terrifying event. It's quite shocking. Okay. By faith, they passed through the Red Sea. Next event, right? 29. The Red Sea. It's interesting that the flood, you know, is to do with water, isn't it? Noah survived. Everybody else was drowned. So he kept dry in the ark. What happened to these people with the Red Sea? They kept dry because the waters parted. They went through dry. What happened to Pharaoh and his armies? They were drowned. God can do that if he wants to make a point. Actually, if I were God, I would think, I'm going to do something dramatic here to get the attention of these people. How about drowning the whole world except for 8 people? Does that get your attention? How about causing the waves to part so that you go through untouched and water drowns everybody else? That gets my attention. I think that's why we're reading this today. We're supposed to remember this. Okay, that's 29. Let's go on a bit further. What about 30? Who's got 30 for us?
I do.
Barbara?
By faith, the Israelites marched around the walls of Jericho for 7 days, and the walls fell down.
Yes.
By faith, Rahab the prostitute did not perish with those who rejected God because she had welcomed the Israelite spies.
Okay, stop right there a moment. That's good. Faith, the walls of Jericho fell down. After 7 days of marching around, that was something of a miracle, wasn't it? The walls just collapsed. God was acting. He's in charge. And the whole thing fell down. And Rahab, of course, was not only a prostitute, but she wasn't an Israelite. She was a pagan. But she did very well because she welcomed the people of God. And in Matthew 25, you'll find those who treat the people of God well, right? They say, well, when did we do good things for you, Jesus? And Jesus will say to them, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of my brothers and sisters, you did it to me. They didn't even know they were Christians doing well. But they treated the people of God well, and so they were rewarded for that. some sort of parallel. Rahab was a prostitute and a pagan, and she did well. She was very honest, risked her own life supporting the people of God.
You know, this list of faith,
Yes.
I can't help but the way it sounds out there, out in the evangelical
Yes.
world, is so by faith, so and so by faith.
Yeah.
You know, if I put myself in their shoes, there's a sort of blind faith out there.
Yeah.
Like these people, oh, by faith, they had this faith in this
Yeah.
invisible God.
Yeah.
But is it better maybe to substitute it or paraphrase it as because they believed God?
Yes, certainly.
You know, these things were done because they had that belief that God could do it. Well, in the case of Jericho,
Absolutely.
God said, I'll do it.
I'll do it.
And they said, okay.
Yeah, that is faith. Believing
You know, but there's this
God.
sort of blind thing
course.
with this
Right.
whole chapter that strikes
Amen.
me.
Right.
Am I right in that?
Oh yes, absolutely. And that's why yesterday we stressed the phrase obedience of faith, right? You cannot have faith without obedience. You cannot have obedience without faith. That's why Paul frames the book of Romans, chapter 1, and chapter 16 with the obedience of faith. And then people say, well, it's all by grace. Yeah, but grace doesn't allow you to not believe. Grace implies that when God says something, you believe it and do it. So Hebrews 5:9 is still the standard verse. It should be preached at least 10 times every Sunday by every preacher. It says that salvation is due to the obedience of Jesus. You obey Jesus. Salvation is granted to those who obey. We're back to the words of Jesus matter. Obey.
And this goes hand in hand with the faith of Jesus.
Absolutely, of course.
When Jesus was in the garden,
Yes.
arguing, sort
Yeah.
of arguing with himself
Yeah.
because he didn't want to do the will of God,
course.
right?
That's
he
right.
did not want to do it, but he
Right.
said, look, well, he had faith. Okay, I'm going to suffer. He saw it coming, the torture. Can you imagine that you see the torture coming and you go, no, I haven't.
don't like
so the
this.
faith of Jesus
God, absolutely.
seems to me to be missing out there.
Well, it is because it's missing in the translations. It's in the Greek. The faith of Abraham and the faith of Jesus are parallel in the Greek. But you've been told by preachers, you know, out there in the world, they've been told to believe on Jesus. That doesn't even mean anything in English. Believe on the Lord, meaning believe that he died and rose. That's not the whole story. That was the whole point of what we've been doing in this class at the college. Yes.
I've been reading the Amplified Bible.
Yes.
And it's very interesting here because when it speaks of all these who died, it says they all died controlled
Yes.
by their faith.
That's
And I thought that was
very
fascinating because it's a high action verb.
It is.
They were
Controlled by the
controlled
faith.
by
Driven
their
by
faith. And then it goes on, it uses other high action verbs like sustained, motivated, urged on,
Yes.
activated.
Yes.
All high action verbs.
Certainly.
But the controlled one
Yeah.
really speaks to me.
It is,
Yeah.
controlled by their faith. In your case, your interest in anti-abortion work. You're driven by the appalling idea of 60 million babies being murdered. That's awful. 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. 60 million babies have been murdered in the womb. And people are controlled by that passion to see that stop. These people then were driven by the kingdom of God idea of the inheritance and the reward.
Couple of comments.
Yes,
actually?
what do we got there?
Let's see. Corey,
Corey, yes.
just to go back to the fear of God,
Mm.
he points to the situation in 2 Kings when they found the book, the law of
Yes,
Moses.
yes,
He says
yes.
when Josiah found the
Yes.
writings, it struck great fear into the king, I guess, and
It
the
does.
king inquired of God through his prophet.
Exactly right. That's a very good
Can I
parallel.
read this?
Yes, please,
When
read
the
it.
king heard the words of the book of the law, he tore his robes, and then he gave orders, go and inquire of the Lord for me and for the people
Yeah.
and for all Judah about what is written in this book that has been found. Great is the Lord's anger
Yes.
that burns against us,
Yes.
because those who have gone before us have not obeyed, what's that word again?
Yes.
The words of this book. They have not acted in accordance with all that is written there concerning us.
That's actually a brilliant parallel, isn't it? They had lost the Bible. They hadn't been paying attention to the Bible. They had rediscovered the Bible and they were terrified. Fear struck their hearts because they said, my goodness, look what's in store for us if we don't pay attention. That is actually very interesting. That was the good King Josiah, one of the great reformers of the Israelite kings.
Is he the guy who destroyed all the idols?
Amongst some others. So the Jewish kings did that quite well.
And the staff of Moses, the snake, he destroyed it because they were worshipping it.
I'm not sure if that was Josiah. Could have been. Yeah, they turned that into an idol. That's right. It could be. I've forgotten whether that was Josiah. Most of the kings of Judah were quite good. Nearly all the kings of Israel, the 10 tribes, were rotten people. They were all apostates. Okay, so that is a list then, and I'm not going to try to describe all of these. You can go back. You should go back and read about Gideon, Barak, and of course Deborah. Deborah and Barak worked together. Deborah was a female judge in Israel. That's interesting. She was the governor of Israel. She was the president. She was the prime minister of Israel. And along with Barak, she did a lot of marvelous things. Samson, you know the story of Samson. Extraordinary story. And then Jephthah, and he did an awful thing. He did it in obedience. He had promised to sacrifice his daughter. And apparently he did. He followed through on a terribly unfortunate vow, but he made the vow and stuck with it.
Can I put this to you? It just so happens that one of our many Muslim friends online, actually a cleric from Indonesia that follows you, Ibn Anwar.
Yes, Ibn Anwar.
He brought this up about, he took me to an article someone wrote that arguing that the New Testament is as bloody and as violent as the Old, based on this list, because this people of war, conquerors and things like that, people who had a lot of blood and are lionized and brought to almost martyrdom in this chapter. They're like martyrs. So the argument goes that, you know, the New Testament is as bad because we lionize these people. What
I see.
You say?
Well, I would say that the New Testament is just as bloody too. Bring my enemies, Jesus said. Bring my enemies who don't want me to rule over them and slaughter them in my presence. That's about as bloody as you get here. You've got a whole lot of 75% of the Bible is Old Testament. The point was that God was acting through these people. And didn't Jesus say, just like in the days of the flood, they were doing this, getting married, until God intervened and killed them all off. So that's very bloody. The book of Revelation is full of blood, full of destruction. Now there is also the other side of that James and John said, do you want us to call fire down from heaven and destroy these people? And Jesus said, you don't know what spirit you are. So there's a time for war and a time for peace.
What's that mean, by the way, to you? You don't know what spirit you want. That saying of Jesus, you don't know what spirit.
Yeah, because the spirit of Jesus was non-violent at that point, and they should be the same way.
It's the same spirit of God, same Old Testament fire, fruits of the spirit, but Jesus is saying not.
Because there's a time for war, there's a time for vengeance, but it's not always right now. Vengeance is mine. This is very bloody in the New Testament. Vengeance is mine. I am going to repay. But you don't do it right now. David, in fact, was not allowed to build a temple because he was a man of blood. Now, he wasn't wrong there. God ordained him to do the fighting, but it wasn't suitable for him, who had been involved in so much bloodshed, to build the temple.
Although his son was equally.
Solomon was not involved in so much fighting. He was involved in a lot of contact with foreign women, and obviously he made lots of mistakes.
When he became king, Solomon, the first order he gave was, bring my enemies. And he killed them.
Yes, some of them, that's certainly true. But he wasn't into bloodshed to the extent of David.
Okay, so there's some about the
There's something about the degree of bloodshed. Yeah, that's what it says. He wasn't a man of war like David.
There was no war, during his reign.
That's the difference. That's the difference, So, I think so. There's a time for war, it says in Ecclesiastes, and there's a time for not war.
It's like a time for mourning. And
right, exactly. Vengeance is mine. I will repay. Bring my enemies in front of me and slaughter them. You're going to rule the nations. You are. with a rod of iron. You want to be like Jesus? Jesus said, as the Father gave me the authority to rule the nations with a rod of iron, I'm going to give it to you as well. But don't do it now. I wouldn't try ruling the nations with a rod of iron today. It's not going to work. But the time is coming when that will be appropriate, perhaps. Okay. So that's Barak and Jephthah. That's a very sad story because he did vow to kill the first person who came out to meet him, and that happens to be his daughter. You can make look better. David and Samuel. Samuel is very key because his mother is so important. Who is his mother? Hannah. So if you call your child Jane or John or Jean, Hannah, grace, is the Hebrew word for grace. Hannah, in 1 Samuel 2, is in the beginning of second chapter of 1 Samuel. Most beautiful, beautiful song. You should read it. It's like Mary's song, like Elizabeth's song. She's got all her theology right. All about the kingdom, all about Messiah, all about raising humble people to sit with nobles and rule the world. She got the gospel. So Samuel is very, very important.
Is that the one that the birth is similar to the virgin birth, where she couldn't bear herself and God helped her bear
Yeah,
herself?
absolutely. She's desperate to have a child and she hasn't got a child. She's another Sarah. Sarah who laughed at the idea of bearing a child at her age, and Abraham laughed too, right? So Sarah is listed as a woman of faith, as you know. Though she laughed initially, she finally got the idea and believed and conceived. So Hannah is there, and as the mother of Samuel, and all the prophets. So Elijah was one of the prophets. Elaine did a nice article on Enoch and Elijah. She mentioned that Enoch was taken so that he wouldn't experience death. Doesn't mean that he was given immortality. And Elijah was one of the prophets. They all died. That's what it says. These all died in 13 and 39. Two key verses in this chapter. 13, they all died. Every one of them. And 39, they all died, including Enoch the prophet and Elijah the prophet. They all are dead. So, tell your friends that lighting candles to Mary is a waste of money. Mary's dead. You're not gaining anything by lighting a candle to Mary. She's dead. She's not even aware of the candle. So forget it. Spend your money more usefully. That's only, what, millions and millions of Roman Catholics, right? What are you doing to help them? Get in on a blog and say, wait a minute, have you thought of this? Mary's dead. Ooh. Now, they may turn on you, but you may open the eyes of some too. What they did, these people, was amazing. They conquered kingdoms. That's amazing. They performed acts of righteousness, obtained promises by faith, Sarah being one of them, eventually conceived, shut the mouths of lions. Now, who did that? Daniel. Isn't that right?
Samson.
Shut the mouth and
Samson too, right?
Samson
He
also.
killed a lion.
Killed a lion.
He snapped the jaw.
Yes.
No, I think it's a reference to Daniel.
Well, that's certainly not only Daniel. Why not any of them involved with it? Somebody else is involved with lions too. I've forgotten who that was. David, right. David and Daniel and also Samson are all involved with lions.
What did David?
1 Samuel 17:34.
Right. Sarah's going to clue us in. What do you got there?
But David said to Saul, your servant was tending his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and took a lamb from the flock, I went out after him and attacked him and rescued it from his mouth. And when he rose up against me, I seized him by his beard and struck him and killed him. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, since he has taunted the armies of the living God.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Good reference. Absolutely. So those lions, women received back their dead by resurrection. Now that wasn't to immortality, but you remember Elijah, is it Elijah who raised the dead, and Elisha, both Elijah and Elisha. This poor kid went up and just died. You remember? Laid him out on the bed, dead. Elijah said, no problem. And he lay on the child, and the child sneezed and came to life again. That's marvelous. God can do all of that. And Peter raised somebody from the dead. Who was that? Tabitha, right? Dorcas. Dorcas was busy doing her embroidery and all of that. She died. No problem. Get Peter in here. Gets on his knees and says, oh God, I'd like to see this person alive. That's it. That's not a difficult thing for God to do at all. So put foreign armies to flight. My goodness, faith is a powerful thing here. Women received back their dead in 35 by resurrection, and others were tortured. Ooh, Michael Servetus. Burned at the stake slowly. Tortured. They were put to death with the sword. They went about in sheepskins, in goatskins, destitute, afflicted, and ill-treated. So, I mean, you haven't suffered to this extent, have you? Most of us have not. Men of whom the world was not worthy. We're not exactly wandering in deserts and mountains, caves and holes in the ground. Excuse me, I don't see much of a cave or a hole in the ground where we're currently seated. So if you've suffered a little bit for the faith, you haven't suffered to the extent of shedding your blood yet. And yet these people did. Men of whom the world was not worthy, I like that in 38. Wandering in deserts, mountains, caves, holes in the ground. Now, the climax verse, right, along with 13. So you mark 13 and 39 together. These people all died, having gained approval through their obedient faith, their obedience of faith, that they were controlled by faith despite the suffering. But they did not receive what was promised, so they haven't gone to heaven. That whole system's got to be changed. That whole system is misleading when it says that you go to heaven when you die. That's awfully bad. It destroys the story, isn't it? It's another narrative. That verse is terrific. They didn't receive the promises. Really, the promises made to Abraham. And there you have Romans 4:13, which says, the promise to Abraham that he would be heir of the world. I never heard that in church. Never heard of it. The promise to Abraham that he'd be heir of the world, Romans 4:13. That's the promise. Because God had provided something else for us, better for us. What was that? Well, we actually got to be post-Jesus time, didn't we? We got to see the real thing. Jesus, who came and taught and died, we experienced that. They didn't. Those all lived before Christ. So that apart from us, all of those heroes, that picture gallery of heroes of the faith, they would not be made perfect apart from us. That's to say, we all get to be raised from the dead if we've died when Christ comes back. And those who are surviving, who will never die ever at all, by the way, if you happen to be alive at the second coming, and you never ever die, caught up to meet the Lord at his second coming, what's called the parousia, which wasn't 1914. You have to explain to your JW friend. Hasn't happened. All of that's going to happen at the second coming, the last trumpet, when the kingdoms of this world become the kingdoms of God, which they are not right now.
Yeah, that last verse goes well with 35.
Yes.
Because they were determined to attain to a better resurrection.
Isn't that wonderful? A better resurrection. In other words, the resurrection that some of them did experience was only to temporary life, probably like Lazarus, right? I don't think Lazarus lived forever. He came alive and then died. However, Jesus is the first to come alive and be resurrected into immortality. Nobody's done that except Jesus. But you will at the second coming.
Randy says, interesting, the names are in chronological
Yes.
order.
Yeah.
Abel,
Yes.
Enoch, Noah, Abraham.
Absolutely.
Abraham.
Absolutely.
Chronological.
All in chronological order.
That's right.
Oh,
Randy is
chronology.
very expert in figures, particularly. He's an IT
Willy
expert.
Brothers in
Yes.
Dutchland.
Holland.
If you question the governing body,
Yeah.
that's the JW
Yeah.
religion, he
Yeah.
calls it, you are treated like Hebrews 11:37 and 38. That's
Yes.
They were stoned, they were sawn in two,
Sawn
they
in
were
two.
tempted, they were put to death with the sword.
Don't do it.
Goodness.
That I saw when all your brothers and sisters, quote unquote, in fear shunned me or others. His English is
That's right. Well, that gives us an opportunity just to mention the very easy fact that reciting the name of God in Hebrew is a non-issue in the New Covenant. Yes, 7,000 times you have the Yod He Vav He, Yahweh, or Yehovah, who knows, who cares, whatever the pronunciation is. But please note that Abraham did not know God as Yahweh. That's in Exodus 6:3. By my name Yahweh, I was not known prior to Moses. That's interesting. The father of the faithful did not know the divine name. That's Exodus 6:3. He was known as El Shaddai, Almighty. Exodus 6:3, I think, is the verse. Isn't that right, Sarah? He was known as El Shaddai, Almighty. The Father was known as the Almighty before that time. Exodus 6:3. I think that's right verse, isn't it? Did I get that one right?
Mm-hmm.
Exodus 6:3. I was not known by my Yahweh name before the time of Moses. That's remarkable. So the father of the faithful, Abraham, didn't actually know the name Yahweh. So they knew God as El Shaddai. And Jesus is never ever called El Shaddai, the Almighty. He's called Mighty God, not Almighty. He's called Divine Hero in Isaiah 9, that's true. But never ever is he called El Shaddai. So that's remarkable. Abraham actually didn't know the name Yahweh. So it's a very great piece of ignorance to insist that you must pronounce the Hebrew name correctly or be somehow outside the faith. That's wrong.
I was looking at that this morning. Am I right in saying only Moses
Yeah.
was shown that, or
Yeah.
told that?
Yeah, that's what it was introduced in Exodus 3. That's exactly right. Yeah, where God shows up and says, I will be what I will be.
At the burning bush.
At the burning bush. I will be what I will be, which is the basis of the idea of Yahweh. I will be, in Hebrew, Eheyeh Asher Eheyeh. I will be what I will be. And they said, well, he will be. And that gives you roughly the idea of Yahweh. It's the self-existing one. Now that idea is in the New Testament, in Revelation. God is said to be the one who was and who is and is to come. That idea, the concept is there in the New Testament. But the name Yahweh is not there. That is amazing. To insist on that as more or less a passport to salvation is fundamentally wrong. What it is it a failure to grasp a new covenant, you see. It's a Jewish roots thing. It's back under the old covenant. Don't go there. Because you cannot mix the old covenant with the new. You're taking yourself away from Christ if you insist on Sabbath keeping. If you insist on saying the divine name in Hebrew, then you are removing yourself from Christ, going back under the old covenant, and that's a very great danger. So that's most unfortunate. I appreciate Willie Grodis' comment there.
There's a thing about the David Solomon thing, about what I alluded to, that Solomon also killed people.
Yes.
But
Yes.
Disho says that there's a difference. David killed enemies.
Yes. Good point.
Sorry, David murdered that woman's husband.
Oh, yes.
And Solomon didn't murder anyone,
That's a good point.
although he killed
He did.
people. But I don't
Yeah.
think
I don't think Solomon was a war maker on the scale that David was. In fact, he certainly wasn't. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been allowed to build the temple. And Solomon expressly was the one to build the temple because David had shed too much blood. I get it. I mean, that's quite clear.
apart from this, just mentioned, Lynn S. is recommending a couple of books here that seem interesting. And then she says that she came out of the Trinity belief.
Yes.
Sorry, this is apart from.
Yeah.
I stumbled on this Trinity material while researching Christian Roman persecution of Jews
Right.
after Council of Nicaea.
Right.
Anyway, she's
Good.
recommending. So
Then it's good. Good. We are encountering ex-Jehovah's
Randy
Witnesses
says,
more.
reminds me of Paul when he says in Philippians 2:11, in order that I may attain to the resurrection from among
Yes.
the dead ones.
Yes.
So your translation,
Oh, yes.
this would also be the first resurrection.
Of course. Absolutely. The first resurrection, also called the resurrection of the just in Luke 14:14. In Revelation 20, it's those who died for the faith, and all other true Christians are raised at what's called the first resurrection in order to rule the world for 1,000 years with Messiah. That's the Christian goal.
About the name issue. Lynn also says,
Yes.
Exodus 6:15,
Yes?
Yahweh,
Yeah.
or Jehovah,
Yes.
however you want to
Yes.
say it, this is my name forever.
Yes.
And this is my memorial to all generations.
Absolutely. And so is physical circumcision. Be careful now. No good quoting that verse, because if you say this is forever, then you're going to be committed to physical circumcision forever and ever and ever. So be very careful with that Hebrew word olam. It means while circumstances pertaining to the subject remain. But it's no good saying my memorial name forever if you're not also prepared to say that the Sabbath is forever. The weekly Sabbath is forever, and physical circumcision is forever. Paul said the opposite. Paul said in Galatians 5:3, if you get physically circumcised, don't do it. You'll be obliged to keep the whole law. Don't do it. Because if you keep the Sabbath, you're re-erecting the barrier between Jew and Gentile. If you insist on the food laws, which Paul did not, because in Romans 14, Paul said, I, a Jew and a Christian, am persuaded that nothing is unclean by itself unless you think it is. Don't eat it if you think it's unclean, but it's not unclean. And then in 14:20 of Romans, Paul said, all things are clean. Paul is not enforcing the food laws. You want to have pork, have it. If you don't have it, that's fine. That's a matter of conscience. But to make that a law of God, or to say that the memorial name is forever, and you must pronounce the Hebrew forever and ever, then you're going to be committed to physical circumcision forever. You're going to go there. How about Sabbath keeping forever? That doesn't work. False argument. Retract it. Doesn't work. No, clearly in the New, they have the word Lord for God. Kyrios in Greek. They don't make any issue at all about saying, I don't want to say Yahweh, that's fine, go for it. But you don't have to insist on it because the New Testament writers don't. So the bottom line argument here is, don't be better than the New Testament. Don't go there. You have inspired scripture in the New Testament. If you say, oh, they were wrong to say Lord, they should have said Yahweh, you are correcting the apostles. Don't do it.
Well, the implication is that they certainly disobeyed Exodus 6:15.
Of course.
That's the case. Just
Yes.
to move on, Anthony.
Yes.
Milk, no sugar. There's no better resurrection than the first.
Good.
The other one isn't so good.
Well, okay, let's talk about the second resurrection. Please note the second resurrection is all the rest of the dead. Revelation 20 verse 5 says the rest of the dead, Revelation 20 verse 5, the rest of the dead did not come to life in resurrection until the end of the 1,000 years. And sure enough, in verse 10 of that chapter, you'll find the second resurrection. It's all the rest of the dead. Anybody who wasn't one of the faithful people in God and in Jesus, all the faithful of all the ages are in the first resurrection, Luke 14:14, resurrection of the just. All the rest of the dead come alive in the second resurrection, but they're not all destroyed. So be careful there. There are trillions upon trillions of human beings who never heard of Jesus. They lived and died without ever hearing about Jesus. You can't judge them on that basis, and they will not be judged on that basis. Romans 2 says that there are many Gentiles who had never had the Torah. They never were exposed to the Bible, but they did things which were good according to conscience. They will be judged on that basis. Most important, that the second resurrection is not just a big burning party. People are judged according to what they reasonably could know. Now, we are in trouble because we've been exposed to a lot of truth. And you can only be judged then and held responsible, I think, for what you reasonably can know. And that's what Jesus said in John 15, verses 22 and 24. He said, if I hadn't come and told you, you wouldn't be guilty. That's interesting, isn't it?
So that reference, Brent, is correct. It's
Yes.
actually Philippians 3.
Okay.
Can I read this?
Yes, please.
Because of him, Jesus, I have suffered the loss of all things.
Yes.
Consider them so much filth
Yes.
that I may gain Messiah
Yes.
and be found within his will.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yes. Doing the will of
The
God.
will of Messiah.
Of course.
Not having an uprightness of my own based on the Torah.
Right.
I'm glad you
Yep.
put in your paraphrase.
Right.
Torah. But one that is through faith in Messiah, the uprightness that comes from God based on faith.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're talking about.
That's
My
right.
goal, says Paul, is to know him and the power of his resurrection, the fellowship of his sufferings.
Yes.
Do you want to
Amazing.
know the fellowship of...
I know. You want the fellowship of
being
Jesus.
conformed to his death.
Yes.
I don't want to be conformed.
Yeah.
Knowing that I will indeed attain to the advanced
Yes.
resurrection,
Yes.
your paraphrase,
Excellent.
from among the dead persons.
Absolutely.
The dead persons.
They're
You're
dead.
the only probably that
Dead people. Dead persons. It is called there the ex-anastasis in the Greek. Very special expression. The advanced resurrection, right? The first resurrection. But be careful that the second resurrection is not just a burning party. It says, if their names were not found in the book of life, in the second resurrection that is, if, then they were put into the lake of fire, which is destruction. It's not eternal torture. However, there's some sort of probation available for people who never... Here's the logic for all of you out there. The logic is this. God wants everybody to be saved. 1 Timothy 2:4. God desires everybody to get saved. And we know that salvation is only through Christ. The logic of that is that he must give every human being a chance to accept Christ. That's reasonable. Patently and obviously, trillions upon trillions upon trillions of people have lived and died without even knowing that Jesus existed. The logic of that is that they must have a probation then in a future hope. It's called the wider hope. This is not saying that everybody gets saved automatically. That would be universal salvation. I don't think that's possible, because Hebrews 10 is very gloomy. For those who've heard the truth and done nothing with it, they're in bad trouble. All right?
And 6, right?
And 6, particularly 10 is the worst, but Hebrews 6, chapter 6, Hebrews chapter 10 is pretty much curtains for those who've known the truth and then said, I don't want it. Now you're in bad trouble. But those trillions of, as I say in class, little old ladies in Fiji lived and died, they never heard of Jesus. So in the second resurrection, Jesus can say, I won't condemn you. You believed in my pre-existence. You were wrong. They never heard of Jesus, let alone his pre-existence. So it follows that they must be judged by the standard of conscience, right? They did very good things. They were good wives. They looked after their children. They were faithful people. They did not have the truth. So in the second resurrection, they would have to be judged on that basis, I think. That's called the wider hope. I think that's probably about right.
Who's the reference to the cut in pieces in 37?
Sawn apart?
Oh, you got
Sawn
cut in
in
pieces.
two.
Sawn in two.
Tradition says that Isaiah was
Yeah.
sawn in two.
Yeah. By Manasseh. King Manasseh was a bad guy. Jewish tradition says that he was sawn in half. Isaiah was. By Manasseh.
So it's not in
No, it's a Jewish tradition.
Tradition.
That's interesting. So the writer here is quoting
Sure.
not something
No,
scripture.
no, they can do that too. That's exactly right. Yeah, so anyway, the conclusion is clear. In verse 40, all the faithful are made perfect together at the second coming. The one future, post-Great Tribulation, second coming. There's no pre-tribulation rapture in Scripture. There's one rapture, one catching up to meet the Lord, and that will occur when Christ appears visibly in the sky in power and great glory.
Lorna is...
Lorna, yeah.
You were talking about the Torah.
Yeah.
She says, what about the moral law? The Torah contains God's moral law.
Of course.
It reveals his character. It
Absolutely.
teaches how we ought to treat each other.
That's it. There's no question about that. The law of the Torah of Moses in the letter is gone. The use of the word moral law is a little bit tricky. What do you mean by moral law? Is the Sabbath a moral law? I don't think so. So you have to be careful with these distinctions that are made by language that you've invented. Yes, Jesus said, don't imagine I've come to destroy the Torah. I haven't. But I've come to fulfill the Torah. Sometimes that means contradicting the Torah. Example, the law of divorce. Matthew 19.
Overturning.
Very clear. Overturning it, destroying it. And Ephesians 2:14 says that Jesus has abolished the Torah in dogmas. Abolished it. So be careful with this statement. Then don't imagine I came to destroy the Torah. I didn't. I came to fulfill it. An example of that would be the food laws. Mark 7:19, Jesus cleansed all foods. That's the comment. And he also said that Sabbath keepers, even in the Old Testament, there were some who were exempt. In Matthew 12, we use this in Peru a lot, with people who want to keep the Sabbath and insist on that. No, Jesus said there is a class of people, namely people who work in the temple, they are innocent when they break the Sabbath. In the Old Testament even. Then he said, a greater, pointing to himself, a greater than the temple is right here. So Jesus abolishes some of the letter of the Torah. I didn't finish my example of divorce in Matthew 19. They said, can we have a divorce for any reason at all? Silly question, right? You know, if my wife burns a toast, can I divorce her? If I see some prettier person down the road, and Jesus said, wait a minute. Moses, he said, allowed you a divorce for various reasons, not entirely clear what that was in detail, but he did allow you to divorce. And if you're divorced, you're not married, by the way. The question was not, can we have a separation for any reason? The question, can we have a divorce? Very important distinction. And Jesus said, now go back to Genesis. He's abolishing the Torah of Moses at that point, going back to an earlier part of the Torah, Genesis, and saying that marriage is marriage. Now, of course, if you have an unbelieving mate, that's a different situation in Paul. If you have unforgiven and unforgivable continuous sexual breaking of the marriage, that's a ground for divorce, not separation. And if you're divorced or not married, you're free to remarry. That's in Matthew 19. But Jesus is tighter than Moses, right? Moses said you could have a divorce for this, that, and the other. But I'm telling you, now he's reforming the law, he's changing it, he's fulfilling the law. So it would be better to say that the spirit of the law is still in force. The letter of the law of Moses is not in every case in force. So to insist on Sabbath keeping is to insist on the letter of the law of Moses. Don't go there. You're now re-erecting the barrier which separated the Jew and the Gentile. Don't do that, because Jesus abolished the Torah in dogmas, Ephesians 2:14, and in Colossians 2:16 he says the calendar is a shadow. Sabbath, holy days, and new moons, equally, without distinction. So our 23 million SDA friends, Seventh-day Adventist friends, say, no, wait a minute, the Sabbath, weekly Sabbath, that's in the Ten Commandments. The rest are not. False distinction. Because in Colossians 2:16, Paul says the calendar is a single shadow. Sabbath weekly, Sabbath monthly, and annually. They're all one thing. That's why we rest. We don't call Sunday a Sabbath. It's not the Sabbath. The Saturday is the Sabbath. We all know that. But the Sabbath in the letter of the law is abolished. Final point would be 1 Corinthians 9:21. Paul said, I, Paul, am not under the law, i.e. of Moses in the letter, but I'm within the Torah of Messiah. I get it. So you must distinguish between the Torah of Messiah and the Torah of Moses. If you don't make that distinction, you're likely to move yourself away from Jesus back under the Old Testament. Don't go there. If you're going to insist on keeping laws of Moses, you're losing Christ. You're throwing him away. You're saying Christ is insufficient. This is a very powerful lesson for today, because that tendency is still there in the book of Galatians is the remedy.
Yeah, if I can add to that, talk about morals.
Yeah.
You got marriage.
Yes.
You know, talk about morals.
Right. Yes.
That even evangelicals still, thank goodness, hold very highly marriage.
Yes, of course.
And killing.
Killing, yeah.
Jesus overturns, in my estimation,
Yep.
the laws concerning war, concerning violence, concerning violence in general.
Absolutely.
Talk about morality. Can I add, every time we go into this conversation, it's a bit of Richard Hayes, if anyone's interested, The Moral Vision of the New Testament is the book.
Okay.
He talks about the Sermon on the Mount,
Yes.
which is our law. That's our Torah, the Christian Torah.
Absolutely.
Right? We always, not we, but evangelicals always go to the Old Testament, especially when it comes to the morality of violence.
Yes, of course.
Okay?
Yes.
But our Torah is the Sermon
Torah
on
of
the
Messiah.
Mount.
Torah
So
of
he
Messiah.
talks about what you're talking about, that marriage thing in is it Matthew 5
Matthew 5 and Matthew 19.
and 19.
Yep.
This extraordinary change of emphasis
Yep.
constitutes a paradigm shift
Yes.
that effectually undermines
Yes.
the Torah's teaching
Yes.
about just punishment for
Yes.
offenders. Sorry, that's for the violence issue.
Yes.
Effectually
It
undermines.
undermines.
Yes, I think that's right. Jesus undermined effectually, absolutely,
Right.
some things of
Some
the
things.
Torah that were very moral, like
So-
marriage and violence.
The rules of divorce, you might say,
The
have
rules
changed.
of
They are.
divorce and the rules of war or violence, if you want to.
Yes, yes.
I mean, so,
Yeah.
and can I say the other thing is, it's a combination of what Jesus did to Torah. He
Of course. Yes.
spiritualizes it,
He does.
if you want to use that word.
He doesn't abolish it, he
Right.
fulfills
He
it, which
spiritualizes.
means actually changing it in some regard.
But at times,
Yeah.
he does change key
Of course he
things.
does.
He does abolish key
Of course he
things
does.
in the law. So
In the
it's a
letter,
combination
in
of
the
what-
letter, that's the point. It's not the spirit of the law. He's made it higher from the letter, moved it up into a higher range. This takes some care, and you can see why people will get this wrong. But we need to do Ephesians 2:14, which says that Jesus abolished the Torah in dogmas. And that must mean those dogmatic things that create a barrier between the Jew and the Gentile. Food laws, Sabbath keeping, holiday keeping. He abolished those, so we can all be one new person, Jew and Gentile, all happily united. So don't go back into Sabbath keeping. That's to disobey Jesus and Paul, unfortunately.
Just to go back to the resurrection, Randy, 2 Timothy 2:12,
Yes, good one.
which says, "This saying is completely
Yes.
trustworthy. If we have died with him, we will also live with him.
Yes.
If we endure, we will also reign as kings with him. If we renounce him, he will also renounce us. If we are faithless, he remains faithful because
Yes.
he cannot deny himself."
Yep.
So that's the value of the first resurrection.
Absolutely. Good point. Yeah. I think we're about out of time. We've done a lot of stuff. We do appreciate all the comments, though. That's excellent. By all means, challenge everything that you want to challenge. And remember the spirit of the Torah of Messiah as distinct from the Torah of Moses in the letter. That's a vital distinction. Okay, we will hope for more interaction next Sunday or
Oh,
Q&A.
yes, Paul,
Are you
you're
good?
away.
Bob is going to be preaching next
Well,
next
born
Sunday.
again, part 3 of his
Part
exciting
three. Yep,
immortal
It's
soul.
on the soul, death, and resurrection.
on the soul,
That-
death, and resurrection.
That may not be the
next
right
Sunday.
order, but
Okay.
those
Next
three
Sunday.
things,
That'll be
yes.
Bob.
Something like that.
The death,
Bob
death,
Warren.
the soul, and the resurrection.
And you're doing your Q&A today? Or
No,
you-
it's next Sunday.
Next week. You're
My
not doing-
Bible.
You're not doing
Oh,
Bible.
you're not there.
No.
Yeah, next Sunday.
Next Sunday, okay. Good, so have a great week and tell your friends all of these basic truths and you'll get into fierce arguments and some people will love you for it.
Excommunication.
That's the way it goes. Okay, thanks very much.
We,
You know what it's
no?
Oh, you're going to sing it? Have we got a song for us? Yes, let's finish with a song. Let's do it.
How about we have a story to tell to the
Yes,
nations?
good one. If you want to have the
Number
children get up and march
351.
around the room, they can do that too.
351.
This is a rousing song to be hummed during the week. We have a story to tell to the nations. Okay.
Son what?
It's number 351. 351 in this hymn book. Okay. Plenty of volumes there, of course.
Want to do?
1 and 4?
Yeah.
Yeah. First verse, and then fourth verse. We've a story to tell to the nations that shall turn their hearts to the right. A story of truth and mercy, a
heaven, thank you for the joy and the pleasure of being together. Thank you for Hebrews 11, this incredible story of those who have gone before and the example that they set for us. I pray that you will help us to take these examples to heart and to live out our faith in obedience. And we pray for your kingdom to come, for your gospel to be made known all over the earth, and for the darkness to turn to dawning. Thank you in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay.